highly regulated or confidential information is concerned. During the first part of this session, I'll cover how Google addresses your security needs. In my 8 years, I've heard many theories and claims, but at the conclusion of this session, you'll know that Google protects your data, fights to keep it private, and always will. I don't have to tell anyone on this call that security is paramount today. The biggest threat is still not from the inside, it's from the outside, but work has changed. Your end users have new expectations, and if your security tools and measures are too restrictive and kill their productivity, they'll figure out, and probably already have, how to get around them. This is what's called shadow IT. You can't say yes to every new technology that comes along. That's equivalent to allowing children to run with scissors. But you can also not say no. The question is, how do you get the best from both worlds? I see the cloud as being a big part of that answer, and there's a lot of information on the internet about this. You can get more innovation, and you can get more security. But you can't go halfway, because where security is concerned, the chain breaks at its weakest link. So what do I mean by that? Let's go over the two models. With on-prem, the old way, you have a very heavy CapEx environment. You have users that break or lose their devices. You have legacy business applications that require you keep older browser versions running, and they need to be frequently patched the older they get because the bad guys are finding ways to insert new exploits. And then the new way, properly vetted cloud solutions changes all of that. Your CapEx is reduced. Updates are automated, data replication solves issues with devices that are broken or lost. Of course, with that model, your security needs will change, and that's what Google's all about, providing you with technology you do not have to build yourself in a way you can afford. Let's go over what you get from Google across these three dimensions: technology, scale, and agility. Obviously, at Google, we look at security from end to end. We build our own servers from commodity parts. We have a rock-solid lifecycle management for those devices, so if they cannot be reused, they are destroyed on site with a crusher and or a shredder. We have a highly customized operating system where even a single bit out of place in the binary creates an action to correct. We've got physical security at our data centers. We know how to select people, we monitor the people that work in our data centers, and we protect the devices that you use every day. We also know how to secure infrastructure. Our global operations runs 24/7, including our security team. Their physical access to the data centers includes manned gates, key cards, biometric access, man traps, and video surveillance. There's a YouTube video where we used our Street View technology to take you on a tour of a data center. So you can Google that after this if you're interested in that. We also know how to manage exabytes of data. We replicate data across our own high-speed fiber network, and this is how we achieve very high availability and why we do not have to take the services you use down when we do run maintenance routines. And the way you store your data, what we call data sharding. We break it up and spread it out, including the user identity, where each piece gets a random file name that's meaningless. Even if someone could get in and could take a server out of the rack and could walk out of the data center with it, the data is meaningless. But wait, there's more. From inside Google, we use the least privilege model. We log everything that our data center employees do. We audit those logs. With encryption, we've got encryption in transit, encryption and obfuscation of data at rest. From your end user point of view, we provide our own two-step verification if you're using our password management system, but we also support your identity management system in a single sign-on or same sign-on environment. We also provide account recovery tools and security assessments for the users to see in their own user account and for admins to see through the admin panel. At the application level with Chrome, you can set security policies with the Chrome management interface. We keep Chrome auto-updated for you, and Chrome leverages Google's safe browsing technology when you're out on the public internet. At the device level, we also include a device management menu with sync and device controls for Androids using Android Sync, iOS using iOS Sync, which is a really new addition to the suite. So if you're still using Active Sync to manage your iOS devices, look at the iOS Sync option that's in the device management menu. And obviously, we still support Active Sync within Google Apps for all other devices that support Active Sync. And if you use Chrome devices, Chromebooks, Chromeboxes, you have controls over that fleet as well, including what wireless networks they can connect to, what URLs they can visit, and so forth. So if you map everything that I have quickly mentioned so far, they address the main security threats. Lost hardware. If all your data is stored with Google, it wouldn't matter. A physical breach. As I mentioned, Google has fenced data centers, gated with guards, locked facilities, and the admin and data center floor are separated by man traps. A network intruder. Google supports 3 forms of authentication from your users accessing our system. We also have suspicious login alerts that your admins can subscribe to from the admin console. The security audits, as I mentioned before, teach your users how to look at their account security review. Look at those same controls from the admin level. And our own network security team is watching the perimeter for you. That team is quite large and quite smart. The tools we have deployed to defend against intrusions and the platform that was designed as a single environment have assured your protection, and they continue to invest heavily in those areas, as well as contributing what they have learned to the academic world, publishing papers and teaching classes. I've mentioned our scale and the way we replicate data over high-speed connections. This is over our own fiber network, one of the largest ones in the world, which is encrypted. Once you're connected to Google Apps, we keep your data on that network, minimizing your exposure to the public internet. The final dimension, agility, this is not just about how we innovate on the products you use, but how quickly our security team moves to first and foremost prevent any incidents, but to continually test, improve, and iterate on what we have in place. We expose ourselves to stringent tests, both penetration testing, vulnerability testing, social engineering testing. We simulate disasters. We run a rewards program. All of these are part of the continual learning and improving. Now let's move into compliance. You need to control your data, and you need the transparency on what we're doing with your data. Not just how we secure it and how we defend its privacy. It is your data. You can take it with you if you want to leave. We provide tools for that using Google Takeout. If we get a third-party request for your data, we defer that request to you. There could be exceptions to that, but that is our policy. You can look up our Google Apps Security FAQ site to see how we respond to government requests. And then we give you other tools via the admin panel and through partnerships such as Virtru to control your data based on your compliance requirements. Our advertising business is not part of Google Apps. There are no ads. There are no advertising profiles being built, okay? Moving on. Google Apps includes an admin panel to manage users and policies. Google Apps Vault is the data retention and e-discovery tool that's integrated with our email storage and drive storage systems. I want to highlight just a couple of things that are relevant here before handing it over to Will. You have access to usage reports and setting up alerts. Those usage reports include the ability to audit what your admins are doing, to audit login activity, to audit drive and calendar activity, to see what third-party tokens your users have installed, to do email, log searches, and then again to sign up for alerts such as suspicious logins so that you've got a better idea of how your users are accessing the service. You also have access to content and attachment compliance engine. So this allows you to scan email based on your own set of criteria. We handle the spam and virus, but if there are other things that need to be handled in a different way, you can set that up to reject, to reroute it to an admin quarantine, to route it to a different email system, to change the subject line so that the recipient is aware that there might be something to pay attention to in the message that they're getting. These are in the Gmail Advanced Setting menu. And with Google Apps Vault, you can search your email and Drive content to respond to a data request. You can put a legal hold on that data so it can be deleted, so it cannot be deleted, and you can export that data as well. I've only scratched the surface on the full story of Google security and privacy. Let me wrap up my part by saying you can verify what our position is and what our capabilities are based on a variety of audits that have resulted in security certifications such as SSAE 16 Type 2, ISO 27001 and 27018, and for our government customers, FISMA, and the pending finalization of our FedRAMP certification. Our engineers make your data secure. Our lawyers help you be compliant across a broad spectrum of regulations. EMEA compliance to Safe Harbor, the EU model contract clauses. We have a HIPAA BAA. We have FERPA and COPA terms in our contract for educational customers. And we have FISMA and are in progress on FedRAMP for our US government customers. But there's other regulations out there, such as the CJIS, the Criminal Justice Information Security Policy. There is no certification program for that. And in some cases, other than CJIS, despite all of the above, you may want to or need to selectively encrypt highly confidential information before it gets to the cloud or before it gets to us. And that's why we've partnered with Virtru. So in this first half, I've explained how the cloud gives you operational, financial, and security benefits, specifics on how Google does that, and the controls we put in your hands. Now I'll turn it over to Will for the second half.
Awesome. Thank you, Donna. So as soon as my slides come up, I'll give a little bit of an intro. Here we go. And if you can't see my screen, just let me know. Awesome. All right, so I am Will Ackerly, the founder and CTO of Virtru, and thank you for the great introduction. Donna, as you mentioned, what Virtru does is helps add an additional layer of protection through end-to-end encryption in a way that's integrated directly into the Google Apps ecosystem. There are different reasons why you may want to use encryption in addition to what Google provides. One category is compliance. So as Donna alluded to, there are some regulatory requirements that require additional protections on top of that which may be available by default. That can include things like criminal justice information. That can include the certain kinds of sharing of regulated health data under HIPAA. Also student information that may be sensitive and must be protected under FERPA, or even particularly sensitive regulated arms data under ITAR. You might also want additional controls of your data even after you have shared them with other parties, such as the ability to revoke access to information, the ability to track how your information is being shared or re-forwarded, also the ability to expire. You might want to share for just a small period of time and not forever. You might also want additional privacy protections, right? Be able to use the native Gmail experience in a way where no third party has access, either Google or Virtru or anybody else. It's just between you and the recipient, as well as additional data security requirements you might have on, say, a per department basis, based on your legal department and engagements they have, or HR data, or finance data, or intellectual property like patents or sensitive code that you might want to protect in an additional way. We have a quick poll question for you. It might show up in the upper right, asking if you have regulatory requirements in your organization. So to ground things a little bit, I just want to talk through different ways that encryption is made available to you today and the benefits that each can impart. So the first, and what Google provides by default, in fact, they were the first to make it default across major email providers, is point-to-point protection, SSL. What this ensures is that your connection to Google, if you're logged in, is always encrypted. So if you're on a Wi-Fi hotspot in a coffee shop, they can't see that content. Basically what that is that green lock in your browser. That tells you you've got that point-to-point connection. What might not be encrypted, though, it might not be protected sufficiently, is those subsequent steps of getting that email to your recipient. There's no way with the standard email to assure that the recipient's servers are doing what's necessary to protect at rest or in transit. So to solve part of that need, there is a portal-based encryption, which is actually available through Google in the form of Google Apps Message Encryption. So you may have encountered this before. What that does is it ensures that the data in transit is always encrypted. And so while there might be certain regulatory requirements or additional protections that you want to provide there, it does not ensure necessarily that the data is going to be encrypted at rest. So the way that you can help ensure that is through end-to-end encryption, right? If you protect the data before it ever leaves your computer, and in a way where it only is available to your recipient, that's considered end-to-end. The benefits of that is both in transit and at rest, regardless of where your data goes, it's always going to be encrypted. Traditionally, the way that's been done is through PGP or S-MIME. The downside of PGP and S-MIME is it can be very hard to use. You can't send to just anybody. You have to make sure that the recipient has got set up ahead of time and shared keys back and forth. So it can be very burdensome, historically complex, and so it hasn't had the kind of broad adoption that would help protect email end-to-end in an easy-to-use way. So that's where Virtru comes in. What we do is we provide end-to-end encryption with that strong protection, but we get rid of the friction. So we allow you to send to absolutely anybody without having to do a manual key exchange, without subjecting you to a portal where you might have to create a new username and password. We do that in a way which is integrated right into Gmail, and we're integrating that into Drive, and we give you access to the encryption keys through a management console where you can manage that. And the kind of power that that provides is the ability to do things like revoke. So even if you've sent an email and it's gone out to that recipient, you can use the control of the keys to pull back access, either through a revocation button or have it expire at a predetermined time. You can also use those to control forwarding, right? So you might trust your recipient, but you might not want to have them be able to forward it to additional people. You also, as Donna alluded to, might have additional rules that you might want to set up. We have the ability to process data loss prevention rules. So if you got something like a social security number or credit card numbers where you want to make sure that it's encrypted, we can do that in a way which is very intuitive, and I'll show you what that looks like in a demo. So all of these together can really help identify, meet the needs that are identified within certain regulatory requirements, as I alluded to earlier, like criminal justice, ITAR, HIPAA for health data. We also help ensure data residency requirements. So with the keys, they're always stored with on U.S. soil. We're also deploying to other countries as well. So we have full assurance that the keys are always going to be in the right spot. From a key management architecture and the way we, I guess we have another poll. So is your organization set up with encryption already? So from the way that Virtru has set this all up and integrates is we actually enable the apps that you have on your computer with Virtru in a way where the content is encrypted before it ever hits Google. The keys are stored on a Virtru key server separate from the content. And then in order to share that content with the recipients, all they have to do is use their existing identity that's been established online. So Donna talked about single sign-on. With your Google identity, you can authenticate to get access to that data without having to manage yet another account. So you've got that end-to-end protection with your existing identity where only you and the recipients have access to the data. What we've done so far is we've integrated that directly into Gmail, and again, I'll show that to you in just a minute. We're working to integrate that power directly into Drive as well, and we've also integrated it into third parties. So many people like to use separate document management systems in the context of Google Drive as well, such as AO Docs, and we have a direct integration there. So if you want to upload and share files through the AO Docs interface, there's a Virtru button to do that, so it's end-to-end secure right in the Drive environment. The way it looks is we go right into your Compose window as well as your sent items, and so it's very intuitive. You can flip a switch, you can control right from your Compose window whether or not things expire immediately or if you want to disable forwarding. And we turn your send button into a send secure button. And we do that in a way which protects both the content of your email as well as attachments. And it doesn't matter what kind of attachment you have, we'll wrap it, we'll protect it in an end-to-end encrypted way. We're also deploying Google Drive. We're in beta with certain customers today. We're going to have general availability in early first quarter of next year. And the exact same experience is going to get brought into Google Drive, so you can share files in an end-to-end encrypted way, in an intuitive way. And then from a AO Doc standpoint, it's the same story. Integrated right into your computer on your web interface, and before it ever gets into Google Drive, it's encrypted and super intuitive. And this is what it looks like. When you upload a file, you can upload encrypted with Virtru. So certain customers have had different reasons for using Virtru. In the case of Mount Sinai, they had strong HIPAA requirements. They have students where they need to have encryption for HIPAA-regulated data. But one interesting additional capability that we provide to them is revocation. And in that particular case, it's powerful because in some cases, at a large institution, it's almost unavoidable, right? Every once in a while, you might send to someone who you might not have intended. With Virtru, you can revoke. And so you might, in many cases, actually avoid having to disclose that information to the recipient, which would cause a violation, and then you'd have to do that reporting. With revocation, then you can potentially avoid that. In the case of the government of Maryland, they actually wanted to continue to use Google Apps, but they wanted to be able to send emails that are particularly sensitive under the criminal justice information federal requirements. And so with the end-to-end encryption, they can continue to do that because Google will never actually have access to the regulated data because it's encrypted with Virtru. And with that, I will show a demo of what it looks like. So as I was alluding to earlier, we have direct integration into Gmail. So what that looks like is this. The only difference between my Chrome browser here and a standard Chrome browser is we have the Virtru plugin installed here. What that does is it gives this little switch. And when I turn that on, it turns on the Virtru encryption. So you can actually send to anybody. Doesn't matter who it is. And then you can send sensitive data. Now, I might forget to turn it on, And if I type in, say, my social security number, and then I hit send, it'll actually surface that rule. So if in this particular case, what we've done is for our entire company, we've said, if there's a social security number, warn the user and let him know. So in this particular case, I'm going to go ahead and keep editing. I'm going to turn on encryption because I know that it's sensitive, and I'm going to add an attachment. So it can be a PDF, it can be an image, it doesn't matter what kind of a file. The Virtru browser will encrypt that before it's ever uploaded into your system. Now, the other thing that we also do is we give you the ability to do things like disable forwarding and set that expiration right from your compose window. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I can also set a customized intro message. And I'll hit send, and I'll show you what it looks like on the receiving end for someone who's never, ever seen Virtru. So here's the recipient, different Gmail. And this is what it looks like for the first-time recipient. So you can see that unencrypted message is here. You can make it as long as you want, but the rest of the message is completely protected. So it's a one-click to open, and it leverages my existing logged-in Gmail identity, and this is what it looks like. So the body of the email is here, and then any attachments are available to view. Now, I could have revoked that, and if I had done that before reading, then it would have been a completely unreadable message. But if I go into my sent items as the sender, and I hit revoke, you'll notice that I can do that. And there's an immediate policy sent to all of the recipients, and so there's an immediate revocation there. Now, from a management standpoint, an administrator may want to set additional policies in addition to that what you saw. So in a single user mode, you'll see that you can see emails and files. In an administrative mode, you can do so as well, but you'll have scope into all the emails within your domain. So this right here is the view into the key server and the keys, right? So you'll notice that for this particular email, there's a large forwarding chain. Forwarding has not been disabled, and so people have been forwarding this email on. As an administrator and as a user, I can see that, and I can actually take action to revoke users that may not be privileged to see that data, and it'll automatically disable further forwarding. You'll also notice that there's a scan report. So if there was a particular reason why something needs to be encrypted, and that message pops up, those warnings, and anything that's hit on a rule standpoint will be shown here. I'm not going to save changes. So to give you a sense of how to build those rules and what it looks like for us, you'll notice here that we have for social security numbers a warn rule, but we can actually set that to encrypt. And so we have a lot of pre-built rules here. We also have the ability to let you build custom rules. So we give you the ability to look into email bodies, email subjects, recipients, and attachments. And we can do that in a way where you can have it trigger a rule if it contains a particular word or a pattern. If you have custom account numbers or some other pattern that you want to look for, the administrator can assert that. You can build lots of dictionaries of things to look for, and then take particular actions, right? So the warn and encrypt rules I've talked about. We can also do additional things like copy compliance officers, either CC or BCC. We can add notes right here, add content, or we can actually strip attachments. So with that, that's sort of a very quick overview. If you want to ask questions, we can circle back on that. And I want to give you one quick look at how we're integrating into Drive. So all of this power and the control that we have for Gmail is something we're also adding to Google Drive as well, in a way which is identically intuitive. So you'll notice in my Drive, a user has shared with me additional data, but it's encrypted with the Virtru TDF. So in this particular case, all you have to do is double click and you can see the content. So in your browser, it'll automatically decrypt and allow you to see the data, right? So it's very intuitive. You can share with anybody. And with that, I think it may be time to go to Q&A. One note real quick, for those who sign up for the Virtru email encryption today or anytime in October, we will give you free licenses to Google Drive as well. And you can claim that at the URL below.
All right, should we jump into Q&A?
That would be great.
Okay. So there's a lot of questions here.